This is Bob Bakert with Jazz Guitar Today. We're here with really and truly a living virtuoso of the jazz guitar, Barry Greene. Every musician that I know that can really play puts Barry at the top of his list. I'm talking about guys like Kevin Bales, etc. You know, you're just highly regarded. And, you teach at University of North Florida, Jacksonville. You've written the books. You've got a really great online presence for downloading of lessons. You've got every major tune that every player really needs to know. You outline them with chord, melody, form, soloing ideas, tracks, the whole 9 yards. It's really quite a stupendous undertaking, and it's really well done. So my question for you is this. A lot of the people that we have and a lot of our mission statement revolves around taking people from pentatonic blues and rock and turning them in, giving them more language in their playing and introducing them more to a more sophisticated language and introducing them to jazz. What do you think are the most important steps in going from that kind of playing to moving into what some people would say playing over changes and understanding the Tin Pan Alley type of harmonies, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I guess my question is, what are the important steps to go from being a pentatonic player to being a jazz player?
Well, first of all, thanks, Bob, for that introduction. I don't know if you could see blushing on Zoom, but it was really a flattering introduction. Thanks so much. And my best to everybody up there. If you do see Kevin, please tell him I say hi. But to answer your question, I think the most important thing, of course, is listening. You know, it's the thing that I think a lot of us as educators get in trouble with is we talk so much about theory and chord scales, arpeggios, and everything else. And when in reality, the most important thing you could do is be listening. So I always recommend a couple of people that I think of as transitional players. And what comes to mind right away, or who comes to mind, is Barry Greene, because he still has a lot of just regular blues, including pentatonic stuff in his playing. And then at just the right times finds a way of putting in the jazz language, but in a way that's real palatable for, I think, anybody. When I mean anybody, it's like you're putting it as somebody who's doing mainly pentatonics. Mm-hmm. So to me, that's the most important thing. And I just use the theory and the chord scale relationship stuff as to support, the note choices that some of them are making. Like I always recommend this one particular solo called Greene's Greenery. I think it's forgetting which record it's on. Within that solo, Grant is dealing with pentatonics, like we're speaking of, but then it hints at some subtle reharmonizations in the blues, deals with getting to this is in the key of B flat, so getting to the C minor 7 chord in measure 9, where, as you know, is where the jazz blues really differs the most from traditional blues. So there's all these little nuggets of just beautiful information, and I recommend just learning those solos note for note. Don't even bother trying to write them down. I mean, a lot of people probably would laugh at that because when I was younger, I wrote them all down, and I still have a lot of them.
I've got a few notebooks myself, but anyway.
I mean, I think it's really, really important for a number of reasons. It definitely helps out your sight reading when you can kind of think of those rhythms in your mind and notate them. You get very, very good at looking at a piece of music and recognizing rhythms immediately. Mm-hmm. So you really only have to concern yourself with the notes. But also, like you said, I've been there, it's 25 years. Some of those transcriptions I did, in the early 80s, and to show them to students, 30 years later, it has a big impact on them, so from that standpoint also. But yeah, that's it. And as you learn these and you discover that, wait, why are these notes working? That's where, to me, the harmony and the chord scale relationship stuff comes in to support things that at the moment might not make sense.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, listen to it and try to play it, basically. Find it.
Exactly. Yeah, the same way you learned how to play regular blues. It's just a more complex vocabulary, that's all. And a lot of students do need some support to explain to them, why all of a sudden is there a B natural in a B flat blues and it sounds great? I don't understand why. And that's where I think like I said, the theory comes into play. Right. But I wouldn't, I hear a lot of musicians, or guitar players in particular, will ask the same questions. I get them almost every single day. What mode are you playing there? What scale are you playing there? When that's not the case at all. There's no kind of thought process like that at all. So yeah, that's the Greene's Greenery. Learn it. Learn the melody too. It's a simple little melody, but it's important.
That's a great tip. I was just going to ask you, do you have a couple of other tunes besides that maybe they should look at? Well,
yeah. I mean, any of the. Like I said, the Barry Greene stuff in general is good because he wasn't really a chop-ish type of guitar player. So most of the stuff that he did, you can actually learn and play. And I think that's an important part of it. I wouldn't recommend trying to learn a Charlie Parker solo, which is going to be out of reach for just about everybody, including myself. So, but I think even some of the stuff, Benson's, of course, George Benson, Wes Montgomery, any of the things that you listen to and think, you know what, physically or chops wise, I know I can play that. It's frustrating to be caught in the middle of something and then there's a big passage that you can't handle because it's too many notes. I'm trying to think. There's a couple tunes on Smoke at the Half Note,
right,
which are killing. The what's that called? The blues one, No Blues, which is it's just fantastic. These are like that's probably one of the greatest guitar solos ever, and you can get most of that.
right.
So I'm a big believer in that, going to the source of this and guitar. It's Charlie Christian, Wes Montgomery.
Right.
That's the source.
Going down that path a little bit. So let's say a guy's playing a tune he's normally used to playing, straight pentatonic, and he notices there's a B note in a B flat blues or a B flat and an A blues. And he goes, what is this? How did it get here? How do I get more understanding of what this is? What's that next path for him to start thinking?
Well, I mean, it just depends on the individual. Like, for instance, some people can listen to the recording and recognize, okay, like the situation I'm describing here is the sound of a G7 chord that would come right before the C minor 7. This is right before the 2-5-1 at the end of the blues.
Right.
But again, that would sound very foreign for somebody who's playing just a tonal center like B flat over the entire thing. So some people are able to hear it, say, oh yeah, it's the sound of the 5 going to 2. If not, I think it does require having some assistance, meaning a teacher,
Right.
to explain that, yeah, these are common things that happen in jazz tunes. You brought up the whole Tin Pan Alley thing in the introduction. That's the whole essence of jazz, those 5-to-1 moments within a given key. So we're in the key of B flat. G7 seems unusual, but it works beautifully, of course, going to C minor. So you might need a little assistance with that in the beginning, but once you understand that, you're off and running.
Excellent. So let me ask you this. What are you doing now?
Well, of course, teaching full time, but everything's remote at University of North Florida, and it's working okay. We've all grown accustomed to it at this point, so it's some things actually work better. For instance, the guitar ensemble, I have the guys sending me the recorded parts. They've all gotten much better at recording, but understanding how they're supposed to really get these parts right versus they might have been a little sloppier within an ensemble setting at school, and they're working much, much harder to really make sure things are played exactly. So that's the big thing. Today I took on my first gig, meaning I put it in my calendar. I've been really hesitant to go out there and play. And that's going to be happening here locally next month.
Well, a couple of things just about you. To learn more about Barry, it's barrygreene.com. And then the video lessons are all there available. Just want to keep it short. This we're doing with these, they're kind of quick hits. Is there anything you'd like to get into or talk about? Just
to say that I think with anything that you want to gain excellence at, it does require time and perseverance and setting yourself some lofty goals and just not, it's so cliche, but not giving up. And there's so much inspiration out there on the internet, with YouTube. There's so many amazing guitar players out there, that are, half my age now. It's just amazing. So that sometimes can be a source of discouragement because you think, well, how can I ever do that?
I've had that conversation with a lot of people. I think the funniest one is Eric Johnson. And we were talking about Cliffs of Dover. Mm-hmm. And he said, he made a comment about 6 months ago. He said, every 12-year-old can play Cliffs of Dover now better than me.
Right.
So in the interview, I said to him, I understand that every 12-year-old can play Cliffs of Dover better than you. And he said, that was so 6 months ago. Now they're 9.
Yeah, it's true though. And it's insane.
I watch some of this stuff and I just think of what a struggle it can be. Well, let's address for a minute. Let's address the value of education at the university level for people that are serious. That gets batted about a lot, and we do have a few extra minutes here, if you don't mind.
Okay. Time. No, absolutely not. Yeah, I'm glad to give you my time. Look, there's always going to be the people that say, it's in an institutionalized thing. That's not the place to learn jazz. And actually, I understand what they're saying, and really disagreeing with necessarily.
Right.
It just depends on the program. I'm fortunate. I've got, Danny Gottlieb, who was on the original Pat Metheny records, Lynn
Sure.
Ariel, who's played with everybody. So we're a faculty that's really about that. That's how we learned as well. So there's a lot of, we're trying to replicate that as best as we can in the university setting. So I'm constantly putting students on the spot. When they're starting to feel good about a particular thing, I'll put them in a different key, put them in a different time signature, something that's going to constantly challenge them. Or, for instance, a thing that younger players are usually weak on is just starting a tune off, or even ending a tune and being in command of that whole process that happens on a gig.
Right.
And I'll say, okay, 8-bar intro, 1, 2, 3, 4, just put them on the spot and make them work for it, because that's what's going to happen to you on a gig, and you want to be prepared for those things. So of course, yeah, we do the same thing that everybody else is talking about, the Dorian mode and that kind of stuff. But I think as performers, we recognize that a lot of that stuff that becomes very, very essential on a gig cannot really be taught in that kind of fashion. You know what I mean?
One of the things I was talking to somebody about, we're talking about the difference between music and a lot of other, being a musician and a lot of other life's challenges, life's past, vocations, etc. Is that in music, you have to, to kind of get to the top of it, if you will, you have to have the theoretical knowledge, in other words, the brain knowledge, if you will, the neuroplasticity, the cognitive stuff. But you also have to equate that with what you can do with your fingers and your hands. So you have to have, it's like, if you're I guess this is a horrible analogy, but if you were a golfer, not only do you have to have the swing, but you have to know the physics behind everything at a very, very deep level. When you challenge your students, do you see that? Are you guys is that part of something you're thinking about? Because if I take a history class, for example, I'm just going to go learn a bunch of stuff from a book and take tests on it. It's all in the brain.
Right.
If I'm going to go learn how to hit a golf ball, I'm going to go, it's all in my body. For the most part. But with music, you got heavy brain, heavy body stuff. Does that ever get banded about, or how do you guys address that, or anybody ever think about that at all?
Yeah, I think we think about that stuff a lot. I think that's a big topic of conversation.
I was hoping you did, or I wouldn't have asked the question.
Yeah, I always use maybe it's not an analogy, but I always say the reason that I began playing guitar, like I'll make the joke, was to meet girls, of course.
Well, we all did.
But,
come on.
Right. Every time I picked up the guitar and just played a G chord when it first started, it was just such an incredible feeling that resonated through you, this whole thing of just being able to make music. So I think what starts happening as we're talking about all this technical stuff and the brain stuff you're talking about,
right?
That starts to overshadow what was the most important feature or what brought you to music in the first place. So I'm constantly reminding students just to never lose sight of that. And when things are getting too daunting, that side of things, the academic side of things, just to go back, forget about all of it, just put on a record and go play along with the record and have a great time,
At my birthday party last night, we had Craig Shaw on bass, Bill Hart was the other guitar player, Asa Allah is a percussionist, he's just a freaking genius, and Yaku Daniels on the drums. These guys are all, pretty good players. I am not worthy. And we had a great time, but we played a lot of old 60s and 70s rock and roll. And we had a ball. We finished up with Santana's Evil Ways. What could be funnier than that? And we did Europa with it and got in, and these guys were going nuts. And when I got done, we got done with the party. We played for about an hour and a half or so. I got done with the party. Elsa, the percussionist, said, "Man, I love playing with you because I never get to play that stuff." And I said, "Well, you know what? I've studied the other stuff and all that, and I'm okay, but I have more fun for me personally now. Just getting back to what it is that got me there in the first place." So when you mentioned this G chord thing, that was a big part of it. Just, what is it about the music that, that you enjoy and you have fun with versus the craft and versus making a living at it. All those things are juxtaposed to each other and have to be reconciled. But, well, listen, I don't have any more. I just wanted to kind of touch base with you. I have utmost respect for your abilities and, you excuse my expression out there in the world, but you play your ass off. And you got all the theory in the world behind you, and you know what you're doing when you pick up an instrument. And the guy that I probably respect most in the world when it comes to all of that is Kevin Bales. We're talking about. He's a great pianist and lives in Atlanta and plays around. And Kevin is a wonderful player, but he's actually probably a better teacher, which is amazing. And you ask Kevin who's his favorite guitar player, and guess who it is? It's you.
Super kind. Thanks very much.
So
Yeah.
So the guy that I admire most on that, is you're his guy. So, people should pay attention to what you're doing down there, Barry. I really appreciate it. I
Thank you
don't
very
have
much,
anything
Bob.
else. That's
All
kind
right.
of it. I want to thank you. I told you it would be short. We just want to get your
Okay.
opinion on a couple things. And
All right.
I appreciate you taking the time hanging out with us this afternoon.
Oh, it's been a pleasure, Bob. Good to see you. And again, my best to everybody up in Atlanta.
Thanks, Barry. Bye-bye.
Bye.